Good morning and welcome back to the daily devotional series called Rooted in God's Word, where we are studying God's Word and hiding God's Word deep into our hearts. Jeremiah 17:8, which says what this series really is about. For he shall be like a tree planted by the rivers, which spreads out its roots by the river, and will not fear when the heat comes, but its leaf will be green, and will not be anxious in the year of drought, nor will cease from yielding fruit. We are hiding God's Word deeply in our hearts so that we're able to really stay connected to Him, stand up firm when the hard times occur. When the heat comes, when the drought occurs, we will not be anxious because we can trust in the Lord. In this series, we have had a hiatus for a while, but we are picking it back up here again in Genesis chapter 13, verses 14 through 18. This is episode number 25 of our study. In our previous episodes, 1 through 24, we have been going through the first part of the book of Genesis and seeing God moving in different people's lives and seeing the creation events occur. And now we are at the time of Abraham. We are following Abraham as God is working in his heart and in his life as he is moving the nation of Israel forward. Israel has not occurred at this time. Abraham will be the father of that nation. He will be the father of a multitude of people. They will be able to look back to him and say, he is our father, Father Abraham. And we are following his time and his journey from the land of Ur into a brief stint in Egypt to finally the promised land where God is really going to be moving on his heart and in his life. So let's look at this together, starting in Genesis chapter 13, verse 14. So in Genesis 13, and by the way, just a quick reminder of the timeline of the book of Genesis that we have been looking at, really 4,000 years from the time of creation to the time of Jesus himself. And so this timeline has been from creation to Noah. That was 1,000 years. You have from Noah to Abraham. You have roughly another 1,000 years. From Abraham to David is another approximately 1,000 years. And then from David to Jesus, you have another 1,000 years. If you go from where we are at today, from Jesus to where we are at today, you are looking at a period of time of about 2,000 years. So really, if you look at the account of Genesis, just follow what Genesis says, that we have a period of time of 6,000 years from creation to where we are at today. And if you look at biblical scientists, they will talk about this as being the young earth creation, the young earth theory when it comes to the creation events. Now, many scientists will hold to millions and millions of years, but if you look at the accounts of the book of Genesis, that's not God's timeline. God's timeline is 6,000 years. So right now, where Abraham is, we are 2,000 years into creation, where Abraham is on the scene. And right now, his name, again, is not called Abraham. His name is still Abram. His name will change from Abram to Abraham when his purpose and his destiny really changes in life. And so it says this, the Lord said to Abram, after Lot had separated from him, lift your eyes now and look from the place where you are, northward, southward, eastward, and westward, for all the land which you see I will give to you and to your descendants. Now I want you to notice a couple of things. It says that the Lord said to Abram, after Lot had separated. After Lot left, then God reminded him of the promise. Now, the promise was that God was going to give to Abraham all of the land that his eyes could see, and that Abram at the time, he was going to be given a multitude of people who would be his descendants and his followers. The promise was not given to Lot. It was not given to any of the other relatives. It was given purposely to Abraham. Abram, who will be Abraham, who that's where the promise originated. And so God was reminding Abram of this promise. Look where you're at now. Look north, south, east, and west, and all of this land I'm going to give to you. It's going to be for you, and it's going to be your descendants, and it's going to be forever. When the nation of Israel came back into being, they were not having an illegitimate claim to the land. They have always had the land. The land has always been for the nation of Israel. It's to the descendants of Abraham. They were given this land from the very beginning. They have it still to this day. So they're never illegitimate people in an illegitimate land. This is a land that God had given to them from the very beginning of time. This is the land that God had promised to the people, to the nation of Israel, that they would have this land forever. That's why the end times events are very much focused on what's going on in Israel, because this is part of the promised land. This is where everything takes place. This is the land that was the land of the covenant, the land of the promise. This is the land where Jesus came and sacrificed his life. This is the land where all of the end times events will be centered as we keep moving forward. So always keep your eye on Israel, the place that Abraham was promised, and the place that is the land of his ancestors, his descendants forever. And he says to Abram, and I will make your descendants as the dust of the earth, so that if a man could number the dust of the earth, then your descendants also could be numbered. And so he's giving to Abram a promise, and the promise was that he will have this incredible number of descendants that will be coming out of his lineage. Now, the only problem with that is that Abram and Sarai were barren, or Sarai was barren, and Abram could not have any sons. And so because Abram could not have sons, this promise seemed like a pipe dream. It seemed like an impossibility. This could never possibly happen because I don't have any descendants and we can't even have kids. So how are you going to make a way? How are you going to make this possible? And this is where the step of faith comes in. And we have talked in this devotional series many times over the past books that we have gone through about what faith really is. And faith is belief plus action. Belief is the mental assent. It is the mentally believing the right things. It is believing what God says. There is a need to believe what God's promise is. The belief is the mental assent to the right thing, but it doesn't end at the mental aspect of it. There also is the action. And what is the action? That is walking in it. That is trusting. That is the obedience, the obeying that's going to happen. This is the actions of life. And that's how faith works in our lives. When you say you have faith, you have the belief, plus you have the subsequent action of walking through life, trusting God and obeying him every step of the way. It's one thing to say, well, I believe, but it not to affect your life whatsoever. That's not faith. Faith is I believe, and it's affecting every area of my life, and I will walk in that faith, and I will walk with those actions, and I will walk, and I will trust, and I will obey him every step of the way wherever I go. That's what faith really is. And so what God is reminding Abram is that this is going to take a great step of faith in your life. And this is not the only step. This is just one of many steps of faith that Abram is going to have to take. Abram is going to have to believe God. He's going to have to trust God. He's going to have to walk with God. He's going to have to obey God in the same way that we do today. We have to make a belief, plus we have to decide that we're going to walk with God. I'm going to trust God. I'm going to obey God. You may have to have faith for the finances that will be provided, faith that a job will come through, faith that a person will be healed, faith that God is going to answer those requests. Faith is, I believe you, God. I believe what your word says. I believe you, and I will walk with you. I will trust you, and I will obey you, and I won't try to do it on my own. I will try to follow you every step of the way. Well, God says to him, Abram, look at every place around you. This is all your land. You're going to need faith because I'm going to bring descendants to you. So now I want you to do this, Abram. I want you to start living it out. Arise. So what is arise? That's get up. Get up and get moving. Get up, walk in the land. So get up, get moving. Faith is not sitting idly by on the couch while the world passes you by. Faith is action really being carried out in your life. You believe, and now you get up and get moving and start working and start going. So he tells Abram, get up, walk the land, its length, walk its width, for I give it to you. That was the thing that God was calling Abram to do. I want you to have faith in action. I want you to have faith, which is action. Faith is, I believe you, God. I have belief. I believe you. I don't doubt it. You know, even when doubts creep in, I still believe you. And it is not just having the belief, but it's also having the action, the subsequent action, to start getting up and get moving. I believe you, and now I'm going to get up and I'm going to get moving. I can't sit idly by anymore. I can't lay around on the couch anymore hoping that something will happen. I have to get up and get moving. Walk the land. Live it. Work it. Obey and trust. Then Abram moved his tent, and he went and he dwelt in the terebinth trees of Mamre, which are in Hebron, and built an altar there to the Lord. This picture of building an altar, I built an altar, is a picture of worship. This is the place of worship. Worship is defined this way. Worship is the ascribing of worth to whatever it is that I am worshiping. Ascribing of worth means that I am saying you are worth it. You are worthy of my praise. When you worship God, you are saying, God, you are worthy of my praise. You are worthy to receive praise. It's done in multiple ways. You can build an altar. You can drop to your knees. You can profess with your words. You can, there's pictures in the Old Testament of laying your body out prostrate before the Lord. You could do that. There's pictures of dancing as forms of worship. There's pictures of lifting your hands. Every act of your life is an act of worship. God, you are worthy of my praise, and I will ascribe worth to you. You are worth revering. I fear you, I honor you, and I want to show my worship to you by the ascribing of worth. And that's what building an altar is all about. I'm coming to a place where I can remember to worship you. An altar was a place where you could go to worship, but also every time you saw it, it was a good visual reminder of the fact that God is worthy of my praise. And so this whole step of faith is what Abram is being called to. Abram, I want you to believe me. And I want you to get into action. Get up, get moving, and walk the land. I want you to trust me. I want you to obey me. I want you to listen to me. I want you to do what I tell you to do. Faith is belief plus the action to live it out in my life and yours. And I hope that you're willing to do that. Well, I hope that encourages you today. I hope that you are living lives of faith, that you believe God, and you will take the subsequent action to get up and get moving and start living out your life for Him. Well, join me back here next time as we keep going in the book of Genesis and keep following along with the exploits of Abram. And there's a lot of things that are going to happen in his life over the next 10 chapters that we need to learn about. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you back here next time.